All right. Welcome, Dr. Marcum, and welcome everybody to our August live stream here on we're live on YouTube and on Facebook and on Twitter. So what we're doing tonight is we're going to take questions, and Dr. Marcum and I will discuss as much as we can. And of course, this is not medical advice, but this is just some information that hopefully we can use to help inspire each other and all live better lives together. Dr. Marcum, welcome, and thanks for sharing your time tonight.
Well, thank you, Nick, and I'm just so thankful that we can do this. And even if just one or two people come on, it's worth it if we can point them to better health and they can share this with your friends and neighbors. But I think this is it's amazing that through the social media now, you can reach all over the place. I remember a few weeks
Yeah.
ago we had people from the Scandinavian countries come, and just quite a few people have come out there, and we have a lot of stuff to talk about tonight. You can sort of let me sort of lead on the discussion, Nick. And what we'll do is I have some current things that are interesting. If people want to know some current things, as well as some political things, we have some things about COVID, some new medical technology. I can sort of let people know what's going on in that world.
Mm-hmm.
If they're interested in what the ministry's doing, we can talk a little bit about how the new book's coming out, how we're reaching people in social media, and how we're doing that. And we want to pray that we get a bunch of people together, that we pray and that God blesses and takes a few loaves and takes it all over the place. So you just sort of lead this discussion, Nick, and I will go where you want to go. And we always want to answer questions first, but if we don't have questions, I got some interesting things to talk about.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Marcum, I want you to talk a little bit just real quick. I've got to figure out something on Facebook here to make it work over there so folks can join in. But I want you to tell us a little bit about the video. Just give us a tease of the video that's going to come out on our YouTube channel tomorrow, and we'll share it on other places as well. But what's the topic? It's going to be on Ozempic and GLP-1s.
Yeah.
What's the discussion about that without giving
here,
away all the secrets?
Here, I don't want to give away everything, but right now, unfortunately, modern medicine, okay, and I think there's a place for modern medicine, but if we look back at the history, they've created products to sell for money, and they don't always address the cause. And sometimes they put products out so quick, and people want such a quick fix that they don't look at the broader implications. So, you can understand, and these are some interesting facts, I think, anyway, that right now, the number one industry in America is healthcare. There's more people working in healthcare than's working in the automobile industry, the sports, entertainment, all of that. 1 in 7 people right now are employed by healthcare. Pharmaceutical, doctor.
One in
1 in 7. These are phenomenal statistics. Okay. And trillions of dollars, about 17 to 18% of the GDP is spent on healthcare. Okay. So healthcare, lots of money involved. And the people are programmed now through the years and years to treat symptoms and not causes, because it's lucrative. It keeps the economy going. Okay. So if you have chronic disease and chronic products that don't keep the money keeps coming in, this keeps getting to be a bigger industry. It's like automobile industry. You have to have something to sell.
Right.
You have to have a product. And so the need in the automobile industry is to get from point A to point B. Well, the needs in the healthcare industry stem around chronic disease. So how you get the chronic disease, whether it's obesity, hypertension, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, all of these chronic diseases, society has sort of created through, whatever, too much fast foods, not sleeping well at night. And they haven't really there's no incentive to teach people how to answer the reason why and get at the root cause. So I talk a little bit about those things in regards to the new medicines out there. There's 4 of them out there now. And it's a lot of people are taking them. It's just not a few. And a lot of people can buy it on the internet without a prescription. And they don't even realize some of the risk and benefits. So I talk about the risk, benefits, pros and cons, the cost, and that's coming out this week. And I think it's going to be interesting. The people from Eli Lilly and some of those aren't going to like me too much, but you know, but they've created another, and this has happened before, Nick, you know, years ago in the 50s and 60s, we didn't have all these medicines for depression and anxiety. So we've created the modern medical, they've created medicines and they created diseases to treat things. And they haven't really thought about some of the causes. And I think this is going to, and we do that many, many different ways. And someone's got to speak out. Well, luckily for us, the HHS, Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy, I think they're trying. Okay. I really do. So now I feel like we have a window to get this message out. And that's why I'm really excited that this year I'm finally, after years and years, finally finishing this book, which is going to be called More Control, Less Fear, Reversing Cardiovascular Disease. But it also not only reverses cardiovascular disease, but it is a solution to chronic disease as well. This book is. And finally, I've got it to the publisher. We're editing it now. Going to make a cover, get all the numbers that you need, the ISBN numbers, start the band. We're hoping to get it to the world late October, and it would be a great Christmas gift for anybody. It's also going to be something if you have someone you want to witness to. I've written this book, so it starts from scratch. This is how I treat someone from scratch when they come into the office that want to reverse cardiovascular disease. So I go through this step by step, and I tried to make it simple, use evidence, but more than that, use experience. And this book, for the first time ever, I've written other books, but this is the first time I really tell my story, you know, about how I've had health issues, how God has grown me through the years. And you know how I've grown, and He's given me the power to make changes one step at a time. And I think people that know me through the years have sort of seen, years ago, you carried more weight, and this, that, and the other. So I sort of walk through how God has helped me and how He can help you. So it's going to be no book like this has ever been written before, and it's going to be sort of revolutionary. It's going to take some darts. People aren't going to like it, and they're going to fire back. Yeah, it's going to go in a direction we don't think it does, but it doesn't really diss modern medicine. It doesn't diss lifestyle medicine, but it puts everything, I think, into the right balance based on biblical truth. Yeah.
Yep. So. Well, hey, that's some good teasers on some upcoming content there. Both the book coming out in this fall, and then tomorrow's YouTube video on Ozempic and weight loss. And there's some better ways to do it than some of the GLP-1s, but we're going to save that discussion for tomorrow's YouTube video. So in the comments, folks, I've put a Linktree link in there, and that just shares links to all of our social media. And so if you like Dr. Marcum's message and you're a fan, you want to share it with other people, you can find us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, X, YouTube, and heartwiseministries.org. And be sure you follow whichever method you are most frequently on, and then we'll give you more information when that new book is available sometime in the fall. And go ahead.
It's I want it to be, this isn't about a person. Our ministry, the major ministry, Heartwise and Biblical Prescriptions, it's not about a person. It's not about you, me, or a guest. It's really about the message that God gives each one of us, and everyone that watches can use this content and what God does to share it so they can spread the gospel. That's really what we're doing this for. And that's what sort of sets us apart. And, I see a lot of people out there that are selling products, making a lot of money. And I guess I could sell something too. But the book is going to support the ministry, which is a 501c3. we're not associated specifically with the denomination, though we're Christians and all of us go to church, but we want to bring people to Christ and the truths in the Bible and let the Holy Spirit transform hearts. That's our real goal here. And I want to give people a balanced approach. And in the hospital today, many people, they want answers, because I think medicine, sometimes people make it just too confusing for people and they don't understand things. If you just sit down there and try to make it a little bit easier and understand and explain things to them, they're much more accepting. And for instance, I had a guy today or yesterday that he had a test. He had a little bit of chest pain, nothing bad. Okay. But we did a test on him and his EKG blood work looked normal. He was walking 2 miles a day. Okay. 2 miles a day. No problems at all. He just had this real tightness a couple times. He did have a family history. So we have a fancy test now that's non-invasive called a coronary CTA, coronary CAT scan of the arteries. So he just laid there and we took pictures of his arteries, and lo and behold, we saw the main artery that supplied the whole heart was 95% blocked with plaque, cholesterol. Wow. And he didn't even feel it. Okay. And a lot of times, it's not so much what we do, it's what we do with the information. So I'm talking to him about it. And I said, listen, I know you're not having a symptom, but you have a blockage that's progressed over time at a very dangerous location. Okay. Yeah. Here are your options. But if this gets worse quickly and you're going to lose your whole heart, you will not live through this. Okay. I know you might do fine for a long time, because just because you have a blockage doesn't mean you're going to have a heart attack. There's different types of heart attacks. But if this does progress, you're going to have problems. So we talked about it. I said, listen, right now you're 72 years old. You're at the healthiest point. If we did bring insurance to your heart, so if something did happen, you'd have an alternative blood supply to your heart. That's what I'm suggesting you do. It's too risky to put a stent in, because when the stent goes in, no blood flow goes out there. That would be too risky. Putting a stent in, I thought, would be too risky than living with it. So your options are to live with it and take the chance of having a problem and not being able to get help, or having an insurance. And he said, well, what's the chance of something bad happening during the surgery, which would be a bypass surgery? I said, in your case, the heart's strong, you're pretty healthy, about 1 in 200 would die. Now, a higher number would have complications. And I said, what would be the other problem if I didn't have it done? I said, well, there's no data on that, but this has progressed over the years to this. If you do it at a problem, it would be 100% fatal. Now, if you've done everything in your life you want to do, you don't have anything you want to do, you're ready to meet Jesus, and you're ready to take that risk, then we'll do the best we can. So you talk to him, answered questions. So he's decided to have a bypass surgery. But that's the point. If he wouldn't have said it, free will is important. And I said, okay, but this is what could happen. You need to know this. That's what we want to do here. We don't want to tell people what to do. We want to let them think for themselves, but we want them to also have Christ in their hearts to guide those decisions and to heal them eternally.
Yeah. Without Christ, what's the point?
Exactly. None of us live forever, and every day I hear about someone dying tragically suddenly. And, the older you get, the more you say, well, I don't want anyone not to at least have a chance to make that decision. And in the world we live in, everyone's distracted. And in my new book, I wrote about all these toxins that we're getting in our brain and how it's actually changing the DNA of our brain and pulling us away from some of the genes that God wants us to activate. So, I'm sorry I got off topic. Let's get to
that's all right.
Let's get to some of these questions here.
Yeah, we've got a
also, I always like to know if we do have people watching, where they're watching from, and please share with us something personal, because I know, I can't get at all the comments. We can't talk about all this, but this is an avenue that we can get to know each other a little bit better.
Yeah. We've got a good group in here and lots of positive comments. Thanks, everybody, for sharing your support so far. And we're going to start with Audrey's question here, and we'll put it on screen. She says, hi, can small airways damage affect your heart function?
Okay.
So small airways, does it damage and
Yeah.
affect your heart function?
Well, that's a good question. But, everything in life either makes us better or makes us worse. Okay. Small airways per se don't necessarily make the heart worse as long as you're getting oxygen through those small airways. Okay. There's some conditions where you have small airways that are genetic. There's some conditions. One's called bronchiolitis obliterans. They're so small, they build up secretions. Yes, that could hurt the heart. But if they're just small and you're getting enough oxygen, you're not getting infections, you're not having asthma or spasms of those vessels, then no. But if you're having problems with them, you want to keep those vessels as good as you can so they bring good oxygen to the heart. Now, sometimes if it's oxygen that's the lungs need it and the lungs aren't getting it, they develop conditions where the pressures in the lungs go high. Okay, so if the pressures in the lungs go high, we call that pulmonary hypertension. The right side of the heart has to pump into those vessels. So if you have to pump against pressure a long time, the heart gets bigger and then it causes problems. The other night, just yesterday, I had a lady that had a malignancy that came to the hospital. She ended up having a colon cancer. And when people have cancer, their blood clots more. So she had developed a bunch of blood clots in her veins that moved up through the ventricle into the blood vessels in the heart. And then the heart had to pump against that pressure, and it didn't do well. So that's a whole different problem than we're talking about here. But it's really according to why the airways are small. Are they just small and you're getting plenty of oxygen? Or are they small because you've had some disease? Are you had asthma? So I can't really answer that with having complete information. If you give me a little bit more information, I might need to do better. But as long as your heart's getting enough oxygen, it's usually doing pretty good. It's when it's oxygen deprived, the heart starts to malfunction. But any input that causes stress on the body incrementally can hurt the heart. So whether that's be stress from some of the things we watch in social media, dehydration, not sleeping enough, not eating enough, pain, all of those can cause different types of inflammation, which can damage the blood vessels. Hopefully we have good coping mechanisms and good genetics so it doesn't cause us to have significant symptoms. So, so Audrey says she has pulmonary hypertension. So that's a different story, Audrey. So if you have pulmonary hypertension, okay, then yes, that can damage especially the right side of the heart. So you would want to ask your doctor, is the right side of my heart that pumps against that pressure, has it been damaged? The second thing you would want to ask your doctor is, why do I have pulmonary hypertension? Sleep apnea can cause it. Infections can cause it. Weak hearts can cause it. Blood clots can cause it. Infections can cause it. Certain types of connective tissue diseases, inflammation can cause it. So that would be the key next question. Is my heart enlarged from pumping against that pressure, and why did I have it? One of the best treatments for pulmonary hypertension is going to be making sure you have enough oxygen and exercising, eating a healthy diet. But beyond that, there's some medicines that actually help when the pressures go really, really high to help dilate those blood vessels to lower the workload that the heart has to pump against.
Yeah, great.
So that
hope
gives
that's
you a little
helpful
bit
for
of
you.
information about that.
Yeah, hopefully that's helpful for you. Just a quick run through here. We've got Naisha, who's in Arkansas. We have A Word of Hope, who's in North Carolina. SMR is from San Antonio, Texas, and Regine is in Florida. So thank you all for sharing. It's nice to see where people are tuning in from.
And I love to know the cities too, Nick, because I travel quite a bit, and sometimes I go through the cities. In Arkansas, I went through a town I went through Fayetteville, and I went through Gentry, and there
Yep.
was a town next to Gentry. I can't remember.
Siloam Springs.
Yeah, went through that. Went to Little Rock. So yeah, and
Yeah.
I used to live in Florida. So I used to live down in Florida. So I had a special spot for. So thank you all
Yeah.
for joining us. We hope you can answer your questions, and also encourage you. And if you like this, and you can ask because we don't charge anything. This is just free information from what I've learned over 35 years. And at the end, we're going to pray for everyone that comes here that they might know that they have eternal healing.
Yep. All right. We're going to go to Carla's question here next. And this is a real hot button topic here. Is vegan diet healthy long-term for heart patients? And Dr. Marcum, there's been a load of comments. People are real on the YouTube channel. People are real sensitive about being called out for eating things that maybe aren't their favorite. But
Okay.
what do you have to say about all that?
Well, I have been working with nutrition for years. When I started out, I had a heart attack when I was 41 years old. And at that time, I got very interested in why it happened and helping my patients every possible way I could. And I got to be in a movie with T. Colin Campbell and those people called Plant Pure Nation. And I read the book, The China Study, and I got to go to Cleveland Clinic and work with Dr. Esselstyn. And I really got into plant nutrition. So the answer to is vegan diets are helpful for the heart. Okay. If you are happy doing it and you're not angry inside. So it's a healthy diet long term. We've sort of changed the name a bit and called it plant-based diet. So I like to say you eat more plants and just enough bad stuff to be happy. So it's the studies have shown it's vegan plant-based diets are the healthiest diets long term for people with heart disease, coronary disease, and it also is used to prevent it. So with that said, it's helpful if you don't get angry inside, and if you make sure if you're having deficiencies in some people on vegan diets have deficiencies. It's usually B12. Okay. Some people have B12, B vitamin deficiencies. Some people have to supplement that or eat food that's fortified. I've also seen people that get so much into the vegan diet that they forget to do everything else they need to do to balance out, help for the cardiovascular system, that decreases inflammation, which ages not only the inside lining called the endothelium, but it damages our genetics. I've also seen people that make their food their God, and that's what they worship. We want people to do things because God is empowering them. They do it to glorify God. So those are all important aspects. But the answer to this question is, in my experience, in the literature that I've read, a vegan diet is the best. Vegan Mediterranean diet. Mediterranean diet is a plant-based diet too. It just adds in some other stuff. That is the healthiest thing to treat coronary disease, to treat heart failure, and also to prevent and possibly reverse in some situations. And you're going to hear a lot of things out there. You know, I've even heard people say that high-fat diets are the best thing for the heart. I've heard people, that just doesn't make sense. I've had people say that high-sodium diet makes sense. The best thing. That doesn't make sense either. So I've heard a little bit of everything. But I think not only has the literature shown that, but I go back to the Bible. The Bible's a source of truth. And God in the Garden of Eden gave us fruits, vegetables, nuts, and grains and herbs. Okay. Later on in Daniel, remember Daniel? They did that nutritional study where Daniel and his friends ate pulse and water. And they studied it with the king's men. And after a short period of time, they were doing so much better. A few years down the road, all of a sudden on the island of Kos in the Aegean Sea, we have this Greek guy who is named the father of medicine, Dr. Hippocrates. He says, let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. He probably heard it from the Babylonian Empire that passed this information down. And Daniel probably got it back from the Pentateuch that they read, and his mom and dad taught him about this. So that's my answer to that question, Carla. Where's Carla calling from?
Let's see, Carla, chime in if you will in the comments about where you're at. She says, "Thank you so much. I appreciate it, doctor." We'll see if she chimes in with where she's located, what state she's in. Excellent. Let's go to another question here, and this user's name is Lord Spike Protein. Lord Spike Protein. All right. Let's see his question or her question. What helps to dilate the blood vessels? And Dr. Marcum, over the years, one thing that I've heard you say is arugula. What else?
Well, yeah, but remember, arugula does it because it has nitrates in it.
That's right. Yep.
So anything with nitrates in it can dilate the blood vessels because nitrates gets in the body's converted to nitric, not nitrous, nitric. Nitrous is laughing gas, but nitric oxide dilates blood vessels. Okay, so that's one thing that can dilate blood vessels. And you get that in all sorts of substances. We do know that people that exercise, okay, have a greater ability to make nitric oxide, which dilates blood vessels. So anything that increases nitrates and nitric oxide production makes the arteries dilate to some degree. Now, we have medicines that do that. One of the medicines is called nitroglycerin. That's a medicine that does it. But there's a host of other ways. Getting good oxygen, deep breathing, anything that lowers stress is going to help the blood vessels because stress makes adrenaline. If you get too much adrenaline, that can constrict it. Okay, so those are types of things, nitrates, and you get that in plant-based diets, exercise. Those are the type of things that I try to focus people on the most to dilate vessels. If that's not working enough, then we have some medicines that can do it, but the nitroglycerin dilates it, but that's again nitric. We have certain other medicines that can dilate the blood vessels if they need as well. But I think the most effective ways is to bathe them in things with nitrates. I frequently prescribe greens 3 times a day, beet powder, beet juice, nitrates, all of those good healthy things, as well as a regular exercise program. It amazes me how beneficial an hour of exercise will do for the arteries. It makes more nitric oxide. It makes in the bone marrow, you make a chemical called endothelial progenitor cells, which helps make more nitrates, nitric oxide, makes the arteries bigger, healthier, helps you grow new blood vessels. That's called angiogenesis. All of these things are little tricks that you can use to dilate blood vessels. Now, can we dilate if your person's having a heart attack and they have to do it right away? We put some nitroglycerin on the tongue. If that doesn't work, we go up and we dilate the blood vessel that's blocked with the balloon. We call that angioplasty, and we can hold that artery open with the stent. But we want that not to happen. But to do those type of things so it doesn't happen, we have to do all of these preventive measures, plant-based diets, exercise, keeping the stressors down on the body, keeping the things that cause inflammation. Inflammation, see, the key to making the arteries bigger is that lining, the endothelium. We know that things that make nitric oxide go down, which is the one that dilates along with other substances, sodium, fat, enemies. So we want to move those out, and things that dilate make more nitric oxide, like plant-based diets, exercise, those type of things that keep the arteries healthy. We want to increase those. So those are just some things. There's many more that can do that, but I think that are the most important ones.
All right, Dr. Marcum, here's a tough one. You and I have talked about this a little bit, and it's kind of controversial, but what about cayenne pepper? Can't that help your arteries and your endothelium?
Cayenne pepper is a good natural remedy for maybe pain, for maybe some inflammation. It will not prevent an acute heart attack. And remember, there's 5 or 6 different types of heart attacks. So when a person is having a heart attack, I want to know what type are they having. For instance, you can have a plaque rupture and get a clot in there. You can have a spasm. You can have a dissection. You can have a clot float in them. So there's different types of heart attacks. And first of all, you have to diagnose what type it is. to know the right treatment. There's no studies and there's no mechanism for cayennes to help an acute heart attack. Okay. And people says, will it hurt to take it if I'm having one? Well, how do you know you have one without going to the emergency room? Okay. So you really have to go in and get a diagnosis. As long as if you take it on the way in to see, I don't think that's going to hurt you a great deal. But it helps other, but there's no studies, and there have been reports of people treating it at home and not getting help, and it was a problem and them not doing well. Yeah. So we don't want that to happen anyway, but there's no literature for acute heart attack, but it might help in preventing vascular disease because it has an antioxidants and anti-inflammatory properties. So it might help some preventive medicines. I think it's a great thing to help with inflammation, and a lot of people use it for that as well. So it's a good antioxidant that can help. But for an emergency heart attack, I think you have to make it diagnosed to make sure that's what you're having and see what type it is, because we treat each type of heart attack a little bit different. And if we don't open up that artery very quickly, a person could die. I was in the hospital today. I saw 3 or 4 different heart attacks. Some were real. Some people just thought they had a heart attack and they weren't having a heart attack. So you have to really make a diagnosis, because if you miss the diagnosis, it could be fatal. So these decisions that you make, in your brain. Now, if someone asked me one time, is it going to hurt? And I says, well, it's only going to hurt if you're having a heart attack and you stay at home. Okay. Yeah. And it's, then it wouldn't help. But if you take it and it goes to the hospital and, then you are having one, then it's probably not going to hurt anything to any great deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know if it's not very controversial to cardiologists, but it's been circulating in the internet since the 50s. And everyone wishes they could have this magic thing and it would just do it. I wish they had it too, but there's no anti-clotting properties that can blow open an artery that quick with the chemicals that are in, which is capsaicin, which is mainly a painkiller. So there's no mechanism of a chemical that can take the 5 different mechanisms of a heart attack a person might have it. And it's very interesting. I'm glad you brought that up. This week, this is the American Cardiology, they're talking about different types of heart attack. And in women age less than 50, it says the most common cause of myocardial infarction in women younger than 50 is one called spontaneous coronary artery rupture. We call that SCAD. It dissects. So the artery just tears apart from within. So that's another type of heart attack. That's treated much differently than if a plaque ruptures and you get a clot there. That's treated much differently than if you have an artery that spasms and opens up. So we treat each different heart attack different ways, but we have to make the diagnosis quick or the muscle dies. If the muscle dies, they have these dangerous rhythms that occur. That's what usually gets people. That's usually what's fatal, those dangerous rhythms.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Marcum. We got some great discussion happening in the comments. Thank you all, everybody, for who's chiming in. Keep those questions coming, and we're going to keep going through them here. While we're on the topic of natural remedies, Dr. Marcum, what do you think about turmeric for inflammation?
I love it. I think turmeric is very valuable for inflammation. It's one of the natural remedies. Ginger's out there. Hydration's out there. Water is a natural remedy that helps with inflammation. So I'm a big fan of turmeric. So I think it's a good thing to take, either the tablet form or if you like to flavor your food with that. I think that is a good natural remedy that's anti-inflammatory. So, and that guy's asked a question before, right?
Yeah. Lord Spike Protein. I want to know Spike Protein. What's your real name?
Lord Spike Protein. How did you get that name as Lord Spike Protein? How did you choose that? Because I've had a lot to say through the years about Spike Protein. I'm not a big fan of Spike Protein, so
yeah.
I don't know if the Lord is a fan of Spike Protein. I am a fan of Lord, but Spike Protein, I don't know about it. He's not a good guy to me.
Well, on that note,
like protein people.
On that note, we had a question earlier and I almost got lost up there in the early section of this live stream. And there's probably not a good answer to this, but let's talk about it. Dr. Marcum, hope you're doing well. I'm worried about spike proteins changing people's personalities. I feel many of my family members have changed, more cold and distant. Is there a connection? And what do you have to say to that person, Dr. Marcum?
Yeah, I think there is a connection. Okay. And let me talk a little bit about that. And, just this last week, the HHS said we're not going to fund this mRNA research going forward. So they took $500 million away. So if we think about it, and I've thought a lot about this, and the spike protein, which came from the COVID and mainly the mRNA vaccine platforms, which were the Pfizer and the Moderna, they really hadn't tested those in large amounts of people. And they wrapped these spike proteins, mRNA, so it actually coded your genes to make these things. Okay. And in the process, it creates an immune reaction. And unfortunately, I don't think they studied it that well. And different people have different DNA. Why do some people, when a bee bites them, they get a really bad reaction? Some people don't. Why do some people are allergic to poison ivy? They don't. Well, anytime the body sees a foreign reaction, there's a inflammatory response. And different genes in different parts of the body can respond differently. Okay. I think it's related to, and it can affect the chemistry of the brain. It can affect every part of the body where a blood vessel goes. The DNA is affected, so sometimes the proteins aren't made correctly. So I think it can. But another thing it has is this thing called brain fog, where people just aren't thinking as clear because they have these inflammatory changes in the brain. It might affect some of their neurotransmitters. We do know that people have had strokes and things like that from these types of situations. So I think it's a problem. But another problem is we've heard so much about this going on for 3 years. There's so much in the media. There's so many people claiming this, that, and they banter back and forth of it. Sometimes I think if it goes on in a person's mind long enough, that creates these thought patterns that can sort of not help you as well either. So I think the answer to that question, yes, I think it plays a role. It's multifactorial. What I wish we would do sooner rather than later is invent, we could, if we wanted to, a blood test where we can measure the spike protein in your body directly. Right now, we measure it indirectly with antibodies to the spike. But the problem with that is everyone says, oh, you've had COVID, so of course you're going to have antibodies. Okay. Now we can follow the antibodies over time to see if things are getting better or worse, but we need to directly measure the spike. We need to directly look at those levels and see what interventions bring down the spike. We also need to know whether some people's genetics that have been programmed by the mRNA, remember, mRNA codes for proteins. So the DNA makes proteins. So if it's making proteins, we have this chronic inflammatory state, we call that spikeflammation. And I have a website, heartwiseministries.org, that we have a whole series on that I made during the pandemic. That might be useful as well. But to make the long story short is, yes, I think that in some people with genetics that are predisposed, this spike protein creating inflammation in the brain and other parts can cause personality changes.
And I'm dropping a link right now into the discussion where you can go straight to the Heartwise Ministries website, to the page where it has Dr. Marcum's series of videos on spikeflammation. So if you want to check those out.
Unfortunately, I've been talking about this for way too long. No one has listened to me about coming up with the direct spike test. My colleague, Peter McCullough, has when he measures the people, he measures the spike protein antibodies, and you can get that at any lab. And if they're high and they're having symptoms, he will try to detox the body, try to break up the spike protein with things like nattokinase. He tries things like turmeric, bromelain, And if it's caused major problems, of course, in the heart, we treat it a little bit different. If there's actually physically blood clots, we have to even have stronger blood thinners. But that's something to talk about with your doctor. But we still need to have this information. But can you imagine right now, the vaccines are still protected by the EUA. So they have not got FDA approval. So you cannot have an adverse reaction and sue a vaccine company. Despite all of the myocarditis, despite all the brain fog, despite all of these increased death rates, despite the miscarriages, despite this depression and brain fog that we see, I still see people with a lot of issues with this, and they just need to know that, yes, they're not making this stuff up. This is real. This is a real failure, I think, in the medical profession, that we haven't stepped up. Even to this date, I think we haven't stepped up. But maybe the HHS, by taking funding away, maybe it won't make more. But we need to help all of those people that have been hurt. So I think the best way would be make spike protein and figure out ways to get that out quicker that are even better studies than we have today.
Yeah, Dr. Marcum, this is a really good discussion that more people need to hear about. And we've got a couple of viewers right now who are on x.com. And specifically to you, if you're watching on x.com right now, if you'll share this, retweet it, whatever you can to help grow our audience there on x.com.
What is
really
X.
good information?
I don't even know what that is.
So X is what Twitter used to be, right?
Oh, okay, got it. So X,
but now it's x.com. So
well, I'm hoping that each person here, I really think that there's a lot of people out there talking, but I like to think that God uses us, all of us, to understand the balance of modern medicine, life care, the society we live in, and focus on God as a source of healing, the source of truth, to help guide us, give us hope, encourage each other. That's our goal is, and we can use this and share it with people on the platforms we use. Then it can exponentially grow. And in doing that, each one of us are answering the gospel commission in Matthew. We're taking the true gospel, you believe in me, to lots of people. And it does it in a non-threatening way. We just want to help meet people's needs and let God, through the Holy Spirit, transform hearts. So thank you for watching on X, and thank you even more if you share it with somebody.
Yeah. All right, let's go to Regine's question here. What are good supplements to take for memory issues? I'm sure there's lots of things that are sold out there, but Dr. Marcum, what are your thoughts?
Well, here's what the studies have shown, okay? And people might not want to hear this because it's hard. I found that people that take supplements, that's an easy thing to do, okay? But the studies have shown that the things that help memory the most are simple things like exercise, 45 minutes to an hour a day. Get out in the sunshine at least 15 minutes a day. Get those red wet waves in there. Drinking water so you're not dehydrated. Those things probably help this much, whereas supplements probably help this much. Everyone is sharing some type of magical supplement. Some people do lack certain enzymes that are needed for memory. One is called L-methylfolate. That is needed to make folic acid, which makes neurotransmitters. A lot of people can improve their memory greatly by just eating fiber. 85% of people don't get enough fiber. By eating fiber, you feed the trillion bacteria in the bowel. It makes a chemical called butyrate. It helps the body make the neurotransmitters, serotonin, that your brain needs. It also cuts down inflammation, which also affects memory. Using your brain helps memory. Working on things, and try not to be be active in your brain. We've seen studies that people that talk to each other, that listen, that read books, that write, those are all things. But she asked about specific supplements. Well, I would say, make sure you don't have a methylfolate deficiency. Make sure you don't have a B12, a vitamin deficiency in B12. Anything that helps inflammation that comes from a supplement if there's inflamed in the brains, might help as well. So any type of food, vegetable that will increase the blood vessel size, like we've talked about, the nitrates, the greens, the beets, all of those would help as well. If you have inflammation in your body and you want to take a supplement, maybe a ginger or turmeric might help a little bit. But remember, they're out there claiming that things like jellyfish, jellyfish things can help the brain. It doesn't make sense. To help the brain, you need to have a good blood supply, you need to make good neurotransmitters, and you need to work the brain. We also need to get adequate rest. So, all of these things are common sense things. They might not be a pill for supplement, but they still change your physiology. They're cheaper, they're safer, and the studies show that this is probably a better way to go long term. But there's many out there. I did a video not too long ago about some of the things that would help with depression, things like that. You might want to look back through that because I went through some of the studies that talked about some of the specific ones. But I think the natural things that we've talked about helps much, much more.
Yeah. All right, let's go to another question here. And Dr. Markham, I'm gonna challenge you on this one. Hopefully you've heard of this, but we'll find out. Can you share your knowledge of Takayasu aortitis? I was recently diagnosed with this. I already had one open heart surgery to repair an aneurysm and replace the aortic valve. Thank you. Dr. Markham, is this something you're familiar with? Takayasu aortitis. I was just reading up on it. It looks like it's a rare chronic autoimmune disease that causes inflammation of the aorta. Oh, it looks like I have lost audio. So, Dr. Mark, I'm going to let you take it from here for a second. Hey guys, we're having an audio problem here. 1 second, Dr. Markham. If you can hear Dr. Markham, go ahead and just leave a comment for us in the chat. We seem to have an audio problem at the moment. All right. If you can hear Nick here, if you can hear me, go ahead and just leave a comment and let me know if you can hear me at all. Dr. Markham, we can't hear you at the moment. At least I can't. Technical difficulties. Yeah, Dr. Markham, they're saying that nobody can hear you either. So I guess maybe we'll just wrap it up right here, Dr. Markham. Folks, sorry for the delay. I'll leave a comment in the messages here. Oh, hey, so Carla says that she can hear me, but not Dr. Markham. So we experienced this a little bit in our warm up before we went live, and I'm not sure what the problem is, but we'll get this sorted out for next time. And Dr. Markham, I just want to say a big thank you to you. I think we'll wrap it up right here, but you had some great information for folks tonight. And if you guys appreciate these live streams, go ahead and make sure you follow us on social, and we'll let you know when the next one is, and we will do our best to get this figured out before the next one. It'll be probably sometime September or at least October. All right, Dr. Markham, just close us off with a prayer here. Dr. Markham, thank you. And sorry for the technical glitch here, but we had a good conversation up to this point. And everybody in the comments, thank you so much. Appreciate you tuning in. And if you have more questions, reach out to us through social media and through our website, heartwiseministries.org. And we look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks, everybody.